Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Cargo Live episode. This is our 8th episode and the last one for 2022. My name is Nadia Bedra and I'm with the Marketing Communications team here at IAG Cargo. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. We are taking questions at the end of the last session, so pop them through into the side of your box, or you can email them to us at marketingteam@iagcargo.com. In today's episode, we're being joined by DSV, Xeneta, and IAG Cargo's Head of Marketing and External Communications. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker, John Cheetham, Chief Commercial Officer at IAG Cargo. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Nadia, and hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cargo Live. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying a busy quarter and all the challenges that this quarter is throwing at us all. I also hope you're enjoying the World Cup that seems to be going on at the moment. Big game tonight, England versus Wales. Come on, England. Anyway, more of that later. So here at IAG Cargo, we're continuing to work on expanding our schedules and diversifying the destinations that we're able to offer you. I'm absolutely delighted that we've just gone back online with passenger services to Haneda, giving us access to the Tokyo market. And we're offering more and more destinations from our various hubs. Aside from Haneda, on the 5th of December, we're going to be starting new flights to Hong Kong with passenger services from Heathrow. I'm very excited about that. I spent 7 years of my career in Hong Kong and have some very dear friends that I've not been able to see for some time. So I'm really looking forward to being able to get on a flight there, see some customers, and catch up with old friends while we're there. We're also expanding in our other hubs as well. So we're starting new services from Barcelona to Santiago, new services from Madrid to Caracas, and new services from Dublin to Miami as well. As we expand the portfolio and expand the number of destinations, we're really, truly rebuilding that global network that you know IAG Cargo for. Aside from network expansion, sustainability continues to be at front of mind. I'm delighted to say that we've just started using sustainable wrap here at our operations in London. It's really another step in the right direction, using that sustainable wrap for building pallets in our everyday operations. In this last quarter, I managed to get out on the road and start speaking to some of our customers in parts of the world. And I had a particularly enjoyable trip to India, which if you've been onto the LinkedIn profile, you may have seen some pictures from it. Great opportunity to visit our top customers. Always been a very key market for IAG Cargo. And I'm really pleased that our schedule that we've managed to build into India now is actually larger and at a greater scale than it was going into the pandemic. Really, really important. And it's becoming such an important manufacturing base. As India has diversified its manufacturing, is now attracting high-tech production as well as where it's been very, very strong in pharmaceuticals and industrials and the like, and garments. It's becoming a very, very critical market for us. So great news that we're able to offer very important air freight capacity out of India. And aside from seeing old friends and customers, it gave us a real opportunity to dig into what was important for our customers and get their feedback on our services and the products that we offer. And I'd really like to thank all our customers and everybody that was involved in the listening forums that we participated in out there. And finally, something that's very close to my heart, we've just recently partnered with the English Cricket Board in collaboration with Lord's Taverners, with British Airways, with Football for Peace and the Sarwar Foundation to start donating capacity to move cricket equipment for the schools that have been affected by the devastating floods in Pakistan. It's really important that we help these children bring some semblance of normality back to their lives. And by being able to provide them with cricket equipment and provide the lift for that, this is one way that helps their education, helps them return to some sort of level of normality. Anyway, we've got some great speakers for you today, so I'm going to move aside and let's move on to the rest of the Cargo Live episode. Thank you very much. Back over to you, Nadia.
Thank you so much, John. Next up, we're heading over to Detroit to join Eva Amos, Vice President, Electrification and Mobility Competence Center at DSV. Hi, Eva. Good morning.
Hi, Nadia. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eva, and I work for DSV. For those of you not familiar with DSV, we are one of the world's largest logistics companies. We have about 75,000 employees across 90 different countries, and we move not just automotive freight, but all kinds of freight. We are structured in several different verticals. We have a vertical that focuses purely on air and sea, another that handles road solutions, and another that handles warehousing and contract logistics. I sit inside of the group of automotive specialists at the group headquarters level. And inside the automotive group, we focus purely on our largest automotive companies. Automotive supply chain really hasn't been that different for the last 50 years, right? We've seen the trend to go global. We've seen increasingly complex supply chains, and it's traditionally very linear. Raw materials create parts, parts then create assemblies, assemblies create cars, cars get distributed, and then there's after sales materials. And that's kind of the end of the line. Unfortunately, transportation and the passenger car industry specifically is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. So in the urge to reach net zero by 2050 and to participate with the Paris Climate Agreement, we in the automotive industry are very much finding ways to promote alternative powertrains, and the leading winner has become the battery electric vehicle. Here at DSV, we're structured very much like our traditional automotive customers. It's a linear supply chain. Customers know what they need, and everybody's got different goals, but it's really not that far apart. We see just a couple degrees of separation. But with the switch to electric mobility and some of the other future technologies that are coming, like autonomous vehicles, and even changing sales models like vehicles and trucks as a service, all of a sudden things are different. Our customers have different goals in mind. Our customers are unsure about what the future should look like. And all of a sudden, we all have to deal with lithium-ion batteries. There are a lot of questions about lithium-ion batteries from a movement and transportation standpoint. But when you dig deeper into that, the supply chain for the lithium-ion batteries has the opportunity to be very different. And when you bring that into the larger context of an automotive vehicle that has thousands and thousands of parts, now things are really interesting. There's a convergence of the tech industry with the automotive industry because the batteries come from the tech industry, as do the semiconductors that I'm sure you've all heard about in the news. And all of a sudden, there are opportunities to use supply chain as a strategic advantage. COVID has definitely been an accelerator for the transition to electric vehicles, and also an accelerator for supply chain to become more on the forefront. Traditionally, those of us in logistics know we're there at the end. We're there for the hard times. We're there when things go wrong. And those who are designing the vehicles, designing the packaging, and unfortunately, those who are upstream don't always think about logistics until the last minute. Now with batteries, things are very different. And that's true for air cargo, and that's true for all different kinds of modes. So here at DSV, we recognize that the needs of the customer are changing, and not just with the largest automotive companies who are making the transition from internal combustion to battery electric, but the needs of the mobility customer are really changing as we see more of that tech influence come into automotive. Though it can be said that maybe cars of the future are more like cell phones on wheels, at the same time, they're still a mechanical device, and they still have far more components and far more regulatory requirements than your average tech device, such as a cell phone or a laptop. Already, almost 75% of the lithium-ion batteries in the world are consumed by the automotive passenger car industry. And I know that sounds a little surprising, but when you think about the scale, your laptop has just a couple of cells in it, and your average battery electric vehicle has thousands. So here in DSV, again, we recognize that the world is changing, the needs of the customers are changing, and we want to be part of that transition, and we want to help the logistics industry change. So we formed the Electrification and Mobility Competence Center. It's a global competence center, and we really want to engage with our customers to help them figure out what their goals are and to figure out strategies to meet those goals. We don't have a standard menu of services because that really doesn't fit the needs of today, and it's not going to help our customers develop supply chain strategies for tomorrow either. Here at the Electrification and Mobility Competence Center, our primary focus is to make sure that customers have what they need today and tomorrow. So we have a group of people that focus purely on understanding and engaging with these customers and often helping them to set their strategies. We spend a lot of time workshopping with our customers and helping them sort through what's noise and getting down to what the root of the issues are, which are sometimes strategy driven. There are times when we're able to extend traditional logistics services, maybe in non-traditional ways to help customers achieve those goals today, but they're not always things that are going to lead to a sustainable future, especially as the volume of batteries that are moving around the world is growing. Our second arm here in the Competence Center is dedicated to making sure that we're working with our carrier partners and that we're developing within DSV to make sure that we are being strategic and open about the changes that we see are needed in the logistics industry. They reflect both the needs of the customers when we're able to sit down and have strategic long-term discussions with our customers, but they're also based on what we see as future trends within the automotive industry. My background is a little bit different. I've been with DSV for about a year and a half now, and before that, I was a customer. I came from industry, and so coming to DSV has been a very interesting opportunity to push the logistics industry forward and help this transition. I started my career as a design engineer. I've worked for both traditional car companies and EV-only car companies, and I think that as the startup mentality is infiltrating the larger OEMs, it's kind of similar to this discussion about the convergence of tech supply chain and automotive. It's complicated to understand these new components, and there's got to be a marriage between the technical know-how and the design goals. When we design cars, when we design batteries purely for just first sale, and we don't think about the after sales components, and we don't think about the potential for circular supply chain, and maybe we don't consider the actual restrictions in terms of transportation and storage, strange things happen and things get expensive. So we try really hard to work with our customers to help them set strategies that meet their goals and to provide empowerment to customers so that they can feel like they're in control of their own supply chains. Now, bringing this back to air freight has been a core component of keeping automotive supply chains running from the very beginning. We don't want to rely on air freight, right? In automotive, the goal is definitely not to put things in the sky, but at the end of the day, we have to keep that line running. That's rule number one in automotive. The line has to stay running. When it comes to batteries, there are all kinds of restrictions. And when it comes to these batteries, just because you know the regulations doesn't mean you're actually going to be able to get it in the air or get it on a boat. So working with your air provider, working with your logistics company up front is essential. Yes, it is possible to move batteries over 35 kilograms, but it's difficult. And it's not something that you're going to be able to pull out of your pocket at the last second if you haven't done some of the permitting work ahead of time and made strategic decisions about where you're going to fly from, where your stocking locations are, and what types of volumes you're going to move. So again, thanks for having me on today. Contact me with questions after the webinar. The transition in automotive is so exciting, and it's really cool to be part of this. It's wonderful to work with IAG Cargo. Thanks for the time. And I encourage all of you who are working on EV supply chain to make sure that you go back to basics, think about your strategy, don't get caught up in the greenwashing that you hear sometimes in the news. And, just remember that we're all in this together, and it's going to be a long time till we hit stability. So really get back to those fundamental strategies, figure out what your goals are, and then figure out the best way to go about achieving them. So Nadia, thanks for the time. Back to you.
Thank you, Eva. And if anyone has any questions for Eva, please pop them through into the comments box and we'll get to those at the end of the last session. Next up, we've been joined by IAG Cargo's Head of Marketing and External Communications to talk all things Forward Rewards, IAG Cargo's loyalty program. Over to you, Matthew.
Thank you, Nadia. It's great to be this side of the camera for the last Cargo Live episode of 2022. For those of you listening on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, please do put in the comments where you're listening from in the world. It's always great to see that. This year, IAG Cargo has been celebrating the 5th birthday of our loyalty program, Forward Rewards. Forward Rewards launched in 2017 with the objective of rewarding small and medium freight forwarders. A year later, Forward Rewards won first place at the Marketing Society Excellent Awards for building customer relations. In 2020, we then expanded the program, launching Forward Platinum, an invitation-only tier for customers with a larger revenue spend. So 4 things that you absolutely must know about Forward Rewards. Firstly, it is free to join. Secondly, it is open to customers globally. When you ship, every single booking you make, you earn points. Now, in terms of those points, you've got 3 redemption options. You can spend your points on flights, on hotels, or for bronze, silver, gold members, on cargo credit. So that is credit towards future cargo bookings. Over the 5 years of the program, flights with British Airways and Iberia have proved to be the most popular redemption option. The destinations we've seen people most travel to via the program: Delhi, Dubai, and New York. Now, in addition to thousands and thousands of free flights, customers have also really benefited from the hotel stays. We've seen customers enjoy more than £1 million worth of hotel stays. If you are shipping with, you're missing out. Points expire the year after they are earned. This is important. If you are sitting on points that you've earned in 2021, you've got until the. So I'm here today on Cargo Live to encourage you to make the most of those points. Enjoy them. Book yourself a flight. In most cases, you can book almost a year out on flights. The hotel cards are also great. In most cases, buy them today and spend them tomorrow, or next year, or the year after. For the hotel stays, you'll have access to over 500,000 hotels. That's via our partnership with Global Hotel Cards, which is powered by Expedia. So huge inventory and global inventory there. To our customers listening, thank you. Thank you for being a partner. Thank you for your support. Please do make the most of those points. Make the most of those rewards. And to everyone listening, I know it's only November, but before I hand back to Nadia, let me wish you all a wonderful Christmas. If you've got any questions about Forward Rewards, please take a look at the website, reach out to your account manager, or drop a note to the marketing team, and we will share. And back to you, Nadia.
Thank you, Matthew. Our last speaker is Niall van der Waal, Chief Air Freight Officer at Xeneta, who joins us from Amsterdam. Over to you, Niall.
Thank you, Nadia. Good morning to you, and good evening, afternoon, morning to the attendees. Thank you for joining in. The next couple of minutes, I'd like to discuss 2 topics close to my heart at the moment. Is one, the relationship between ocean and air freight. And the second one will be how much more dynamic pricing has become since the pandemic started. Well, let me start off with the first topic. I joined Xeneta about 11 months ago, and Xeneta is the largest provider of air freight and ocean freight data, and I have a background in air freight. And what I've learned in the last 11 months is that the air freight and ocean freight markets are much more connected than I initially thought. Yes, there are goods that by nature will always go by ocean or will always go by air. But there's also a portion where it's up to the circumstances, whether they will move by air or by ocean. And there are multiple factors at play there. One that has received quite a bit of press recently is the relative cost of moving stuff by ocean versus air. Eva just mentioned in her presentation, we don't want to use air. There are multiple companies that like to avoid that for cost comparisons. And what we've seen in publications that during COVID, because of the rise primarily of ocean freight rates, that the cost of air freight were only 3 to 5 times higher on a ton basis than they were for ocean, while pre-pandemic it was often 10 to 15 times. But that is not the topic I would like to highlight, because based on the numerous conversations I've had with shipping companies, shippers, I should say, over the last 11 months, is that it's the reliability of ocean freight. That if I had to single out one component that is most relevant, it is that one. And if I could just bring up the slide, please, Marie. Thank you for that. So what does this slide show? This shows you the rate developments of air freight spot rates between Europe and North America. And that's the orange line. And the purple line is the ocean schedule reliability on the same trade lane. So we're talking here from Europe to North America. And what we can see is the inverted correlation. To give you context, pre-pandemic, let's say the global reliability was around 80 to 90%. And then we see a pre-pandemic on this specific trade lane around 75%. But then if we look back in 2021, we see a nosedive, and the reliability of the ocean carriers, did containers arrive on time? They were at historically low levels, the 20 to 30%. And that is the time when logistics managers became so uncomfortable with ocean freight that they started putting more and more volumes on air, on planes. And as a result of that, we saw a boost towards air freight, and substantially higher rates than previously. So, and that's on this specific trade lane, but we also see it across the Pacific, and we've seen it across from Asia into Europe. And to give you a very specific example, we had a customer summit 3 weeks ago in Hamburg, where we met several shippers, and one of them, an apparel company, mentioned that typically, let's say pre-COVID, roughly 5% of their volumes would move by air. And in the last 18 months, it was 20%, 20. So a fourfold amount of air freight shipments because of the unreliability on the ocean side. And there are numerous examples of that. So the question, if ocean reliability goes down, air freight rates go up. The reverse is also true. The more shippers are comfortable with the ocean reliability, the less likely they will be to put goods on planes. We have seen these numbers creep up the last couple of months. The question is, what will 2023 bring? As you might have seen in the press, rates on the ocean side have plummeted because of lack of demand. There are numerous blank sailings taking place, record blank sailings, meaning that the ocean carriers do not execute according to schedule. They cancel their ships. And the question is, what will 2023 bring from that point of view? Will the less pressure there will be on the supply chain, will that improve the reliability and therefore put less pressure on air freight? Or will the blank sailings create such a havoc that these supply chain managers at the shippers will continue to use air freight more than they would like to? I don't have the final say on that, but I think it will be good for everybody involved in air freight to keep a close eye on these ocean developments and how they continue in 2023, because they will have a profound impact on the demand for air freight. So that was the first part of my story. The second part is looking at pricing and how much more dynamic that has become, both between freight forwarders and airlines, as well as freight forwarders and their relationship with shippers. So if I would go to my next slide, here it is. Two graphs. On the left-hand side, you can see how much of the global chargeable weight, so transactions between airlines and freight forwarders, are moving against a rate that is valid for less than 1 month. And what we can see pre-pandemic, that was roughly around the 30 to 35% mark. About 1/3 of the global volumes were moving against a rate that was valid for less than 1 month. And then COVID happened, and in the peak of COVID, it even increased close to 50% for certain weeks, but now it's more stable, around 45%. So that means that close to half of all the transactions that are taking place between freight forwarders and airlines have a price validity of less than 1 month. And so you can imagine that airlines have become a lot more dynamic in setting the rates for their services. I think for a great part because of the volatility that is in the marketplace. And there were no other mechanisms in dealing with that just than shortening that the validity of those transactions, those deals. If we go to the right-hand side, there we see the consequence of that new dynamic. Because if freight forwarders and airlines are shortening the time window, then that would surely have an impact on how the freight forwarders are dealing with the shippers. And that's on the right-hand side. There you can see, maybe a little bit small, but what it shows is the validity of prices in contracts between freight forwarders and their shippers. And so the purple means those rates were valid for less than 1 month, and the blue represents rates that contracts that have a rate valid for longer than 6 months. And what you can clearly see here in the last couple of quarters, the blue ones have disappeared. And what we see now is that the yellow one, 3 to 6 months, in most cases, those are deals for 3 months, 1 quarter. So close to 100% of the deals between freight forwarders and shippers have a validity of 3 months or less, creating a tremendous amount of work on the shipper as well as on the forwarder side in continuously adjusting those rates to the new market dynamics. It also shows, I think, that there is still a lot of uncertainty in the market, and there's very little room to go for deals longer than 6 months. Because in the conversation that I've been having, with our shipper community, those offers do come in, but there's so much, let's say, security built into that to have to deal with the uncertain times, that there are very little competitive bids that are valid for longer than 6 months. So in short, there's a lot more work going on within pricing departments, both at the airlines, at the freight forwarders, and as a result of that, at the logistics department and shippers in dealing with these constantly changing conditions in the air freight market. And on that, Nadia, thank you. Back to you. Oh no, maybe if I can just make one more comment. Go Holland. John made a remark about the big game between England and Wales, if I recall correctly. But we have also a big one coming up this evening, so hopefully we can make it to the next round. Other than that, thank you, Nadia. Back to you.
Thank you. No, I won't be making any football comments. We are now going to take a few questions. So we've got 2 questions for Eva. Someone has asked, is DSV adapting to support the rise in transporting electric vehicle parts And if so, how?
Absolutely. Yeah, we only have so much time today, so I didn't want to make it too much of a DSV commercial, but we are changing. The Electrification and Mobility Competence Center is leading that transition. Even though I sit inside the automotive vertical, my team and I engage with more than 100 of DSV's accounts that are focused on electric and future mobility. We work with not only traditional car companies, but things as small as micromobility scooters, eVTOL boats, mining equipment, the battery suppliers themselves, those that are making powertrain solutions. And everybody has a different goal in mind. To some extent, automotive supply chain hasn't necessarily changed. Aside from the batteries and aside from some of the other components like magnets that you see in motors, there's not a huge introduction of dangerous goods. One of the issues that people have when they think about electric vehicle part transportation is that the lithium-ion batteries are considered a Class 9 dangerous good, but at the same time, they don't fit super well into the existing dangerous goods system that they're kind of being squished into. As a result, sometimes it's not enough to know the regulations. There's a person on our team who's dedicated 100% to figuring out what the baseline regulation is. But carriers, both in the air and on the water, are welcome to impose their own restrictions on top of that. So we've got this two-pronged approach where we help customers to figure out what their goals are, because you have to be strategic when you're moving some of these new components. And we also work with our carrier partners to understand what their voluntary restrictions are, why they're there, and what we can do to work with them to increase capacity or increase ease of doing business with them and advocating on behalf of our customers. This knowledge not only extends to our customers and our carriers, but within DSV, we're a very large company. We've got offices, I think 1,500 of them now. This competence also extends into operations within our own company to make sure that those engaging with these future mobility accounts have the knowledge and the connections of the carriers that they need to be successful for our customers.
Thank you, Eva. And we've got one more question for you. Someone has asked, which are currently the most popular markets / countries for electric vehicles that you're seeing?
Sure. There are 3 huge hotspots in the world right now. One would be Asia, primarily China. The second would be North America, primarily the United States. And the third would be Europe. And Europe is a little bit split. Germany has always been a huge hub for vehicles, whether they're electric or not. But in Scandinavia, up in the Nordics, we see a lot of activity with these newer types of vehicle powertrains because there's such a focus on sustainability in places like Sweden, Denmark, Norway. So those are kind of the 3 regions where we see it. And what's really interesting, I keep saying that all of our customers have different goals, is that there's definitely a regional flavor to the regulations that are coming from governments in each of these regions, and everybody's got a different focus. So globally, everyone's trying to nearshore. Certain countries aren't getting along with other countries so well. We're trying to wean off of dominance on Chinese manufacturing in the battery supply chain, both in the United States and in Europe. At the same time, China has a massive electric vehicle market, and their vehicles have different types of cell chemistries. So the focus on supply chain in these different regions is pretty different. In Asia, there's a focus on getting these vehicles to market. There's a focus on the smaller vehicles. At the same time, in Asia, there's absolute cutting edge technology, not just with electric vehicles, but even with autonomous. In North America, it's a little bit split. Certain states are very much pro EV and are pushing to get as many new EV vehicles on the road as possible, and nearshoring that supply chain and bringing in cell chemistries that perhaps rely a little bit more on minerals that are found more commonly in North America. And over in Europe, there's definitely a focus on circular supply chain, especially because of their regulation with the battery directive. So there's a huge focus on not just getting the vehicles launched, but also figuring out how to collect those batteries and get them back into the supply chain to reuse them. So everybody's got a different focus right now, and it's a lot of fun to help everyone figure out what it is that they want to do, and for our global customers to figure out how they're going to put together a supply chain that meets all of these criteria.
Thank you so much, Eva. That's all we've got time for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Just want to thank all our speakers today and thank you for all listening. Enjoy the rest of your day, and please stay updated with all of the IAG Cargo news by following us on LinkedIn or signing up to our newsletter by emailing marketingteam@iagcargo.com. Thank you.